Hello friends, and welcome to Borgcast Original Series 1.1. Oh yeah.
Ooh.
It all begins here, literally. And we're starting with the pilot story, The Cage. We looked at the restored version, but not the... I don't know if they've done a special edition version of the pilot, actually, come to think of it.
Not sure.
But there we are. But I don't think there'd be much reason to, because there aren't any other spaceships other than the Enterprise, and you always see the Enterprise as a model, so that's fine. There is a original version, which I presume has got the black and white stuff on it, which was the one that you originally got on video. But then they reconstructed the colour version using bits of the menagerie, basically.
Okay.
We're just about to get invaded by dogs.
And she's
bringing
got her
toys.
toy llama with her.
So we've got the dogs. We're all ready to go then. Because, not one of our podcasts is complete without the dogs in the room.
Yeah, well, it's a dog cast, isn't it?
It is a dog cast, and he'll start snoring soon, the old one. But there we go. Let's get started with The Cage.
A ship in trouble making a forced landing, sir. That's it. No other message.
I have a fix. It comes from the TOS Star Group.
We've no ships or Earth colonies that far out.
Their call letters check with a survey expedition. SS Columbia.
Disappeared in that region approximately 18 years ago.
It would take that long for a radio beam to travel from there to here.
Records show the tallest group has never been explored. Solar system similar to Earth.
11 planets. Number 4 seems to be Class M. Oxygen atmosphere.
And they could still be alive, even after 18 years.
If they survive the crash.
We aren't going to go? To be certain?
Not without any indication of survivors, no. Continue on to the Vega colony and take care of our own sick and injured first.
So you start with the theme tune, but... Now, I could be wrong, and maybe we'll find this out on the next cast, but I thought that the main series introduced more than 2 people, whereas this one only introduces the captain...
Yeah, well,
and the
obviously...
guest star, and that was it.
Yes, well, the rest of the cast are definitely sort of very much lower build. Yes, so really it's just Christopher Pike plus guest star in this one.
Yeah.
Say Chris Pike, Jeffrey Hunter, obviously.
Yeah. But the music is the same.
Yes.
And after the credits, you see the Enterprise and you go in through the top.
Yeah, it's a fantastic effect,
I
isn't
love.
it?
It's
really
brilliant.
good stuff, that is. I mean, such an achievement for the day to be able to pull that off with, on a television budget as well.
Yeah.
Just, astounding, really.
Yeah. There's something out there headed towards the ship. You can't see what it is on the view screen, except that the view screen keeps going wibbly, which made me think of Scooby-Doo.
Yes, it's a strange effect that they keep doing. The bridge... to me, looks very small. It's probably just because I got so used to discovering its mammoth-sized bridges. But, tiny little cupboard that they're sat in.
It does seem smaller than I remember it being on the main series. I'm
Yeah.
wondering whether, not necessarily in the first season, but I'm wondering whether at some point they got a redress.
Yeah, I think they certainly redressed it for the main series proper, because it's also very bland in terms of colours.
Yeah.
You'll get a lot more red around the place.
Yeah, red and orange.
Yes.
Yeah. But no, this was what I think of as the outer consoles that people sit at or look at or whatever, seem an awful lot closer to the captain's chair.
Yeah, no, it does seem a lot more cramped.
And likewise, Con and Ops are closer to the captain's chair.
Yep.
Than I can remember.
It's like he could just lean forward and tap him on the back.
Yeah, like he could. If he was being really annoying, he could just poke them at regular intervals.
So it's exactly as it is in the rest of the series, except smaller. Somehow and less colourful.
Yeah.
Can we do uniform watch now? Can we please?
I haven't got there yet.
Oh!
Because for me, it comes up at a specific point.
Right,
later.
okay.
It will come up.
Right.
Because what I was struck by is the fuck off massive red button that beeps. It's fucking huge.
Yeah, I think that's retained in the main series. Yes, when they go to red alert. Not that that's a thing yet. But
yeah, but no, it's just a fuck off massive red button.
It's not a button. It's a big
thing.
display thing.
Yeah, but then it's like it's beeping like fucking. It should be like, oh shit, what we gonna do? And Pike's like, no evasive manoeuvres, and I'm like, but the big red flashy thing, but the big red flashy thing. And then they find out that it's radio waves, and it's a ship in trouble. And they worked out that they look at sort of nearby constellations, whatever. They find one that's M class, and they work out it would take 18 years for the signal to reach them.
Uniform.
Not yet!
Oh.
They work out that it would take 18 years for the signal to reach them. So the captain understandably says, look, we're not stopping without an indication of survivors if this is 18 years old, because we don't know that anyone survived. Then the captain goes into his cabin, which has a fuck-off massive
Telly?
wood cabinet with a telly in it. What the fuck is that?
That is so 60s stroke 70s, isn't it? A wood panel telly.
Yes. It's a massive cabinet.
It takes up half his room.
I know, and it's a massive cabinet with a comparatively small screen as well. I'm hoping he's got a fucking bar in the rest of it or something.
Yeah, it doesn't look as nice as Kirk's does later on, does it? This is, we ought to say something about Jeffrey Hunter, if you're not going to allow me to say anything about uniforms yet.
I was about to come on to that.
Oh, Jonesing. Uniforms or Captain, which should we go first with?
Not yet have we got to either.
Oh, what?
You bear with me. There's a logic. Right. Because the captain comes in and it's Dr. Boyce, who I recognised.
The Doctor, yes.
Yes. I nearly called him Boyce. He's not actually Boyce.
No, that's only Fools and Horses, isn't it?
But I think it's Boyce, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah. He's played by John Hoyt, who turned up in an episode of the original Battlestar Galactica as a member of the Core Number 12.
Yeah. So I recognised him. Anyway, he opens his case and Pike's like, what are you doing? I didn't call you in here for an exam, because he's just double-checking his thinking with the doctor, which makes sense. He says, does my chief medical officer concur that after an 18-year gap, we're right to not stop? And he gets out all his doctor's bag and pours the captain a martini.
With
I
ice.
like that, Doctor. And then says, people will tell their bartenders all sorts of things they don't tell your doctor. So I want to know how you really are. This is where we start talking about the captain, because this is where we find out about him.
Right.
So because you find out that at the moment, he's really tired of the responsibility. He's recently been through a trauma where he lost people on Rigel 7. Mm-hmm. And it's eating him up, and he talks about, and this comes into play later in the episode, sort of visions of, just not doing a lot apart from riding horses. And then he says, or maybe even being a space pirate, complete with trade. And the doctor's like, what, with green animals, women and slaves? What's green? Soylent Green?
The women are. Although quite where the animals come in, I don't know. It's a very curiously constructed sentence. And also, hang on, being an Orion slave trader is an option for members of the Federation, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And also, I like Pike normally.
Mm-hmm.
I like Discovery Pike.
Well,
I'm not sure about this Pike at all.
Yeah. So, I mean, what do we make of Jeffrey Hunter as an actor?
I'm really sorry, but I think he's a nice piece of arse, but I don't think he can act very well.
She did at one point say, look at his arse. So it's nice that there's something there for the ladies, but no, he is very one note, isn't he? I can't just, compare him to Shatner as like chalk and cheese.
But you compare him to Anson Mount.
Yeah, Anson Mount is far
brilliant,
better. Yeah.
And this guy isn't.
Apparently Lloyd Bridges, I should say, was also considered. Best known to us from Airplane, of course.
Yes, but wasn't he also in Galactica?
He was, yes. He was Captain Kane?
Yes,
Admiral Kane?
yeah.
No, I think it was...
Admiral Kane. But Kane,
Yeah,
but the one... Yeah. I don't know. Not sure I can see that.
Yeah. I mean, Hunter tragically died at the age of 43.
Oh.
So during the original series' run.
What did he die of?
Well, he died during surgery, apparently, to repair a skull fracture from a fall in his home.
Yeah, I mean, if you damage your skull, the risks of dying while you're being operated on have got to be pretty high, haven't they?
Yeah, it's pretty tragic anyway.
Yeah.
Originally, the character was named Robert April, and Robert April became like the first captain of the Enterprise as a result.
It's mentioned in by Saru.
Yep, and he actually turns up in the animated series as well as a Commodore.
Okay. Gosh, Chewie just woke himself up snoring so loudly.
Yep.
I get that the captain might be struggling after going through something traumatic, and that he might feel the need of a break. I get that. I get that he might want to spend time riding, because all Star Trek captains do that. I think Gene Roddenberry must have had a riding thing.
Yeah, it's what captains do, apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas, my favourite horse has always been shy horses, because I am can't ride a horse to save my fucking life, and you're not supposed to ride Shire horses in the main unless you're like a knight in full fucking armour. So they were always my favourite horses because I could stroke them without anybody expecting me to ride one without falling off. There you go. You needed to know that, didn't you?
Yeah. Okay. Are we on uniforms yet?
No, that hasn't come up yet.
But they've been wearing them throughout.
No, wait! Bloody hell. You can tell you don't file anything, do you?
What do you mean?
You don't do things thematically, do you? Things that are related to
No,
each other
I do
go
things in
together.
order of importance. And clearly uniforms is right at the top.
Obviously. Right. Anyway, while the captain and the doctor are having their drink, a message comes through that there's a follow-up message that there are crash survivors on Telos. So they're going to go at time warp factor 7.
Yeah.
And then you have the theme tune again
Yeah, but for a really long time as well.
for a
It's-
montage.
yeah,
travelling.
technically, basically.
I mean, would this have been an ad break and they've stuck it in? What's going on?
I don't know. It's padding, basically, isn't it?
But yeah, I mean, you know, it's less. I mean, at least when the 18 did montages, they were like building shit. They wasn't
Yeah.
just. You know what I mean? It's terrible. Ah, dear. Anyway, they then have this thing where there's a new yeoman because the previous one died. And she startles the captain and he's, you know, not at all comfortable. And then he says, I can't get used to having a woman on the bridge while there's a load of women on the bridge.
There's at
Just
least
really-
two other women on the bridge, yeah.
Really bloody
And I get that
confusing.
number one apparently somehow doesn't count in his head. But nevertheless, earlier on we did see another woman on the
Yeah.
bridge. So what's that all about?
And, you know, the idea that number one doesn't count in his head, I mean, still doesn't work.
No, not really, but...
Also, the idea, given that this was the 60s, okay, so the idea of women's lib was already, the germ was there, okay, the concept was there. They're writing science fiction, they're setting this in the future. That line of dialogue should not have been there.
No, and it doesn't match what we get later on in Trek, which at least managed to be slightly better in terms of... I mean, having said that, of course, number one is the second officer of the ship.
Yeah.
And she is a she. I don't
Exactly,
care
so,
what
yeah.
Pike says.
So it just doesn't make any sense. Like, if they had a different culture saying this...
It is very
it's
un-Trek,
just-
isn't it?
Yeah, very un-Trek, but also just in that shot, you know what I mean? And on that bridge are two women,
but
so
then
it makes
again,
no sense.
So is having a dream about becoming an Orion slaver, isn't it? So
Maybe he's just totally lost the plot then.
I don't know.
So then he says something that I can't work out, given the previous thing, whether this is him being sexist or this is him being logical. Because he says Majel, I can't call her number one. She's Majel Barrett. He says that Majel has to stay behind on the ship, which made me feel like it was yet another bloody Famous Five episode where all the boys go off and have an adventure and the girls have to fuck off.
To be fair, he effectively says because you're the most senior officer,
Yeah.
you'll. I'm afraid you have to stay behind and be in command of the ship, which is good and makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, arguably, she ought to be the one that goes down and lead the away team, which is kind of what we get in
Yeah.
Next Generation. But it's better
The
than...
idea that you split them up is something, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Whereas, of course, in the rest of Star Trek, we get first officer and captain always being down together because they're the stars of the show.
Yeah, which is ridiculous. So I get what he's saying, but it did feel to me a bit Famous Five. As I can remember reading those as a kid and being all excited about the adventures, and then the girls never got to go.
Yes.
I'd have gone. I'm just saying.
But then again, we get to Next Generation, and all I think of is it Cupid, where the poor Crusher and Troy...
the only ones who knew actually how to fight.
Yeah, all they're allowed to do is hit people over the head with vases because they're women.
Yeah. Now we get to uniform.
Oh,
Because now we get to the point where they go to the transporter room and there's these guys in overalls.
She said, man in a uniform, tonight that's what I want you to be. She said, third time this week, you wore that old suit, but I don't give a damn, you see, because man in a uniform.
Yes, I think possibly the idea is that the non-officers...
NCOs, non-commissioned
yeah.
officers?
Possibly they get overalls. And we do see that, throughout the original series, there are people wandering around in overalls, particularly engineering crew.
Okay.
So that kind of works. I like that.
I quite like
it's a good
the
look.
of the overalls.
I
to
don't
be
like the
honest.
colour so much, But yes, interestingly, we only have 2 division colours. We have 3 different divisions still with the emblems, but
Only 2 colours.
But only 2 colours, which is really odd, and nowhere near. Adding to the fact that the bridge isn't very colourful either, it all looks a bit bland at the moment, basically compared to later.
It does,
Trek.
and like at least the uniforms could be brighter or something. But also, I couldn't see, but I kept looking. Do they have pen pockets? They look like they should have pen pockets.
No, they don't. No pockets in Trek. To the extent that with their away kits, they have those weird harnesses
Yes.
to put their phasers and communicators in, whereas later on they just have Velcro that they stick it to their trousers, which is better. Women, interestingly, don't wear tight miniskirts.
No.
In the pilot, which is good. They wear proper trousers.
They looked. I thought they looked smart.
Yeah, that
and
looked
I
good.
also noticed that the women's boots have heels, and I thought, oh, and then I saw at least one bloke in the same boots. So they seem to have unisex boots, or at least if not necessarily officially unisex, it's not. The men have the flat boots and the women have the heels. If you see what I mean, it's a mixing up of that at least.
I'm not so fond of the collar on them. They look a bit naff. Much better the uniform that we get used to. And of course, when they go on a away mission, they get their sparkly away jackets, which are very cool.
I quite like those, but lots of Velcro.
Yeah, and then you wonder why you never see them wearing jackets for the rest of the original series. It's beamed down sometime into ice and snow, and they're just wearing just their shirts.
Yes. And do we ever see again the massive... One of them has a massive backpack.
No, yes, they beam down with all sorts of bits of kit, don't they, which we never see again. And there's no obvious tricorders at the moment.
No.
I mean, presumably some of that kit is tricorder. Yeah. The phasers are different. They're quite chunky.
I like them.
Very laser gun-like, aren't they?
Yeah, no, but I like them, and I like the twisting action.
Yeah.
I like that.
I don't like the fact the away jackets don't have any insignia or anything on them. They're just completely plain.
But I kind of like that because the idea is you grab one off the peg and they're the same for everybody, and they were having it a tricorder and a phaser and a ration bar, or do you know what I mean? I kind of like the idea that they're off the peg thing for everyone. I like that. But they were very Velcro, and I'm afraid they did rather remind me of fuzzy felt. Are we all right now to move on from uniforms?
We haven't spoken about Leonard Nimoy yet. Are we going to do that at some point?
We can do that now if you
Jolly
want.
good. I mean, obviously, he's there. He's not the second officer yet. He's, as everybody knows, in the pilot, rather more emotional. I know that silly minisode does not explain it, but there we go. Because Vulcans are always unemotional for the rest of the series, so that makes no sense. Apparently, Martin Landau was second choice for Spock.
I can see that.
Yep, ended up in Space 1999 instead. But yes, both him and Majel Barrett had worked with Roddenberry on The Lieutenant previously, which was a cop show, and he'd actually written the 2 characters with them in mind.
Oh, well. That makes sense. I think he's good. I think the only downside for me, and it'd be interesting to see whether this carries on or not, is on our fuck-off massive telly, and we haven't seen any original series on our massive telly, the fact the ears are fake is really obvious. Now, it could be that the makeup wasn't as good in the pilot as later seasons. Or it could just be that we now have a fuck-off massive telly and the ears are so much bigger, you can see how obviously fake they are. But yeah, he does smile and that a lot more, but he still looks obviously alien, I think.
Another little thing that's worth mentioning, when Pike goes to his quarters, he passes a couple of presumably crew, and unless they've got civilians on board, they certainly never get mentioned again. There's a guy in shorts and a lady in a colourful skirt. Looks like they're off to the beach or something. It's bizarre.
But then when he's talking to Dr. Boyce, he does say, doesn't he, that, they've got people to drop off, so maybe they rescue some people
maybe they are civilians that they're dropping off then. Yes, that makes sense. Jolly good.
We get to see the transporter for the first time.
Yes.
It seems to need 2 people to operate it.
It does, doesn't it? And makes rather more noise than I remember it making in the original series, and a slightly different noise as well. But yes, it seems a bit more, I don't know, hashed together.
Yes. But then, I don't know how much of this carries through, but I think we learned from Enterprise that it hasn't been around that long.
Well, it's introduced during the run of Enterprise, isn't it? So, yes, it's obviously still relatively early days, I guess.
Yeah. So they land on a planet that, to me, has incredibly fake-looking scenery.
I'll get used to that, because that's true throughout the original series, I'm afraid. Partly, tellies were a lot smaller and less detailed, so it wasn't so obvious, and partly just people weren't used to the sort of stunning effects that they do in TV series these days. I mean,
Yeah.
this and Mandalorian are like, you know.
But the thing is, you've then got these noisy plants with blue leaves, and they just reach out and touch them. And I'm just like, don't just touch them. What if they're poisonous?
Yes, quite.
It's like my brother-in-law recently gathered up a load of soil for his and my sister's garden because they need more soil. Fine. They live in Mexico, okay? And everybody else had left this soil alone, and he gathered it all up gleefully without thinking, and it contained a poisonous resin, covered him head to toe in hives, and the only thing that eased the pain was covering his body in hemorrhoid cream. What if that blue plant had done that? How do they know? They haven't been to this planet before. What if they were going to have to spend the rest of the day covered in hemorrhoid cream?
Yes, okay, thank you for that. I mean, slightly strangely, when they hold on to the plants, it stops the sort of singing that's going on. But that sort of singing is like the standard alien planet noise from now on for the rest of original Trek. Even though there are no singing plants around. But it's like, we've made this recording, we're going to darn well use it.
Fair enough. And then they meet the survivors, who are sort of
old dudes
in rags. And they're all like, oh, we're going to take you back to Earth, and you won't believe how quickly we're going to get there. The time barrier has been broken. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Okay, then. And then they introduce...
Has been for a long while, if you consider First Contact was, you know, when they first went to warp. So it's a bit, that unfortunately doesn't fit later continuity, but you can't blame the cage for that.
No. And then they introduce a young woman who they call Vina, as in venal?
No, Vina.
No, but are they getting that name from the word venal? Is that the derivative?
Well, this is written by Roddenberry, so who can say?
Well, I'm afraid my brain just went, Vina, Las Vegas.
Yeah. Okay, she's played by Susan Oliver, who's a far, far better actor than Hunter, to be honest.
Oh, it shows, though.
It does.
The scenes where they're together, it shows.
She's like got range.
Yeah, and like... Yeah, when she shows emotion, you think that the character is feeling that emotion. When he says, fill yourself with hate, he doesn't look any different. It's just his fists are clenched.
I know. He's very wooden, isn't he?
Yes. She's much younger, which doesn't seem to make any sense.
It doesn't initially, but it's explained later.
And all the old men have got lovely, shiny space rucksacks.
Sparkly. Although they do say that she was born just after they landed.
Yeah.
But there aren't any women.
Yeah.
Okay.
That doesn't make any sense.
Not really.
No. Unless they're implying her mother died in childbirth. But then if that's the case, who breastfed her? Again, she would be dead.
Anyway, let's
just leave that.
It doesn't matter ultimately, does it?
No, it doesn't, because shortly after we get to see the shiny space rucksacks and they talk about that, we have a secret, they all disappear. They all fuck off. And Vina is trying to take Pike up some stairs, and a big brain appears and points a crayon at Pike, and he collapses.
It's like a magic wand. I love the little zip effect it does, though. That's really Flash Gordon. That's great, that is. So the Telosians, they were originally going to resemble crabs. That was Roddenberry's plan.
Wow.
Thankfully, they realised just how unachievable that would have been. I mean, just see Doctor Who's the Macra Terror for how badly that went. Famously, of course, they're played by women but voiced by men, just to give you that sort of strange sense that they're alien beings. And they have, one of them anyway, has a throbbing veins on the skull, which is quite impressive.
Which makes some people think of scrotums and bollock brains, but when you look at the back of their brain, it looks like an arse. They're bum brains.
Right.
So Pike then disappears behind a door, and they try and fire their phasers at it, but it doesn't do anything. And so Spock informs number one that the captain has been taken and that the party was a fraud, it was all a trap.
It's a trap!
Pike wakes up on a bed and can see a corridor, but there's a force field or something else in place.
Some perspex, actually, but yeah.
Yeah. And then he sees some sort of pig monkey and then possibly the shadow of Big Bird from Sesame Street.
Yes. Now, these two alien creature outfits were built for the An Outer Limits episode, apparently. So they're recycling them here.
Okay.
And then in one of the cages, inverted commas, you just see like shadows moving, and it's literally some dude playing shadow puppets.
Oh, is he doing deformed rabbit?
Yeah. And then your Telosian enters, and every time the Telosians come through their silver door, it makes the same noise as from the children's programme Mr. Ben from my childhood, when the shopkeeper appeared.
Mr. Ben took the outfit and went into the fitting room. He was soon changed, and he looked at himself in the mirror.
So every time that door opens, I expected to see the shopkeeper from Mr. Ben and give, Pike a new outfit for a new adventure.
Well, he kind of does, because he gives him an illusion where he's got the castle, and Rigel 7, he's kind of like a knight.
Yeah.
And he's kind of like a cowboy when he imagines him with the horses.
No, that's apparently his civilian clothes, which is interesting, but yes.
So he's done the cowboy and he's done the knight already from the Mr. Ben adventures, from that big wheel.
He started as the astronaut, so got that one,
Yeah.
I can't remember
the
chef. There was a chef, wasn't there?
He hasn't cooked anything.
No.
Are we playing out to the Mr. Ben theme tune?
I don't know.
So then you have, in the briefing room, number one's assembled everyone together, and they're talking about possibilities, and the Doctor's talking about how, they can make anyone have any kind of illusion. They're like, we just got to attack it. We've got, we can do all sorts of stuff. And Spock's like, they've got brains that's 3 times the size of us. And then says, on the viewfinder thing, shows a slide, and it looks like
really
someone...
bad crap drawing.
Yes! It's just like, bloody hell. It's like earlier on in the scene, he's sort of flicking his fingers, but his other hand has got a change slide button. Do you know what I mean? From slideshows and whatever. You know what? You know that's what that is. And on this one, it's just... And I know that at the time, it probably seemed either futuristic or totally normal, one or t'other. But to us watching this now, so many years later, it's just crap, isn't it?
It is rather, yes.
And this is why Discovery had to do things differently.
Yeah, suddenly they get holographic 3D technology.
Yes.
It's all a bit different to the hand-drawn picture.
Yeah, blatantly hand-drawn bad picture. I mean, bloody hell. I mean, I've seen better E-fits. Oh, dear. So then... Down on the planet, they recreate Rigel 7, which, of course, he was talking about before with the Doctor.
Which is a fantastic map.
It's amazing, isn't it? I love that castle with the rounded top.
Yeah, and the way they actually sort of... whether they sort of got the map on the top of the camera, filming, like a glass map like they used to do on Doctor Who. But, the way that they incorporate the characters into the map.
It looks really good.
Really good, and of course, that image is going to come up at the end of practically every Star Trek episode now. Because, they paid the money, they may as well make the most of it.
Fair enough. And then this bloke appears in furs with a blatantly fake
The Kalar.
voice.
Yes, overdubbed. Looking very Russian, I thought, with that big hairy hat.
Well, it reminded me of so not necessarily Russian, but what the Russians look like in the Hammer Rasputin.
Yes.
Which might not be what actual Russians look like necessarily.
The sort of medieval Russian.
Yeah.
It's good to have some action finally, because it's all been a bit, sort of talky up to this point. But we get a fight. I mean, it's not as exciting as what is Shatner's fight, but it's still a fight.
The thing is, he says... And a better actor might have made something of this, but what he basically says is, no, I won't perform for you, and then has a fight anyway.
Yes.
Whereas an actor who could sort of portray it as, no, I won't, and then feeling conflicted.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, he's way... He's just... Confliction is way beyond what he's capable of showing.
Sorry, no, it doesn't work, unfortunately. And she screams.
And why is she dressed as a medieval princess? That's just wrong. I'm sorry.
I don't know. Anyway, the illusion ends and then she's in the cage with him.
And he's lost his away jacket. You don't see it for the rest of the episode.
They nicked it.
Yes. Nasty Telosians nicking the away jacket. So one of them's behind the silver door walking up and down with it. Look at me.
Yeah. And then Venus says that, here you can become anything, and he questions if she's real, and then asks if they feel what he feels. And then she gets punished and vanishes as another bum brain appears in the lift.
Yeah, compare her acting being punished, which is quite painful to watch.
You believe that she's in pain.
Compared to his, where it's like, oh, straight me back.
Well, sometimes it just looks like maybe he's straining a bit for a poo.
Yeah. Bit of wind. Oh, heartburn. Oh,
Oh, turtle's head.
oh, really?
Sorry. And then they open a sort of door thing to feed him, and he tries to then access it to try and get out, but he can't keep it open, and it's a protein drink. And they say he can, make it look like anything. He's like, what if I don't drink it? What if I starve? And they're like, now we'll punish you, we'll set you on fire. But you don't believe it because he's not very good at acting, unfortunately.
Meanwhile, the crew attempt to break into the Telosian caves by transmitting ship's power. Or, well, I assume that would mean firing phasers. But no, it's a weird cannon thing that makes the same noise as the Enterprise engine does, which is weird. It's a modified camera dolly, actually, that they use for this. But it's a really good effect, to be fair, in the way they make it all glow and stuff.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, the laser doesn't work, so fail, apparently. Vina explains the Telosians have evolved to the point that they're not able to enjoy life anymore. So they've constructed a zoo, the menagerie. Hold on to that word, because it'll come up later on. Pike realises Vina is real after all, and the Telosians want them to breed, which is nice. They punish her for telling him the truth, and then Pike with some nicely disturbing fire effects, actually, to be fair. That was quite a good scene. And the way they've kind of got liquid and stuff, that looks quite impressive, I thought.
Oh, yeah, the fire looks good. It's the acting I'm not so impressed with, I'm afraid.
Then he's back home with his horses, and Vina in a crap wig.
And it looks like she's wearing pyjamas for a picnic.
Yeah, I think that was the sort of clothing you'd wear for a picnic in the 60s, I think.
Really?
Or possibly even the 50s, to be honest.
And then when you look closely, it looks actually like she's made an outfit of the same stuff as the fucking tablecloth.
Yes. And one of his horses is called Tango. Kind of hope the other one's called Cash.
We do.
There's, again, nice detail. There's a lovely background in the distance of a city.
Yeah.
This is future Mojave, California, which has some very sci-fi cities, apparently. Pike's civvies are very denim Western style, aren't they? That's why you thought he looked like a cowboy, that and the horses, I guess.
Yeah, that combined with the horse. But
it's still a better look than what we get in the movies, isn't it? So, or the early movies, anyway.
Yeah, but I'm afraid, and again, I don't know if it's just the big telly, but this set just screamed set to me. And I think the main thing that I was aware of was the fake grass, more than anything else.
It's partly the colour, actually, and I think
Yeah.
that's because of the restoration, possibly.
Oh, okay, so it might not have looked as bad at the time.
It may have looked better at the time, and obviously considerably better in black and white, but there we go. Pike works out that strong emotions block the Telosians' mind-reading abilities, so that's going to pay out. Vina decides he needs to feel released from duty. So he then becomes an Orion slaver, with Vina as his green-skinned dancer with another bad wig. It's a classic image, of course.
Yeah.
You're private dancer, a dancer for money. Do what you want me to do. I'm your private dancer, a dancer for money, and any old music will do.
Except he's there with a couple of other leery dudes, one of them wearing a Starfleet dress uniform.
Yes.
Well, that's just what this says about Starfleet, I do not know. And he says, oh, how wonderful it is that the slaves like being taken advantage of.
Oh, it's horrible.
Ugh.
Yeah.
So very Roddenberry, though, isn't
Yes.
it? Anyway, thankfully, he looks a bit uncomfortable with his concept and walks out. But, that was a dream he'd spoken about earlier, so... Number one is leading a mission to try and beam into the Telosians' base, but only she and Yeoman Colt beam in. And it turns out they're alternatives for Pike to breed with. Roddenberry. The magistrate turns up and reveals number one often has fantasies about Pike. And Colt has strong emotional drives. Because of course. Welcome to the 60s, folks. Spock is now the acting captain and prepares to leave, but the ship's power goes out. Switch to rockets, he tells engineering.
I love that.
Oh my gosh. I am so glad they changed that to impulse drive later in the series.
Yeah, but I love that. The vision of rockets,
It's
brilliant. The nacelles, right, they part,
Yeah.
and it's just actual rockets, and they go...
The magistrate tries to sneak in the cell and grab the phasers the women brought, but Pike grabs them, and begins to throttle them.
Love it.
They seem to turn into the orange reptile stroke gorilla thing from the beginning, but Pike knows it's an illusion.
Yep.
Telosians reveal they're holding the Enterprise to ransom and are downloading all its records and the cassettes as well.
Yes, I love that.
It's actually say tapes. Oh, man.
Do you think they included the Weetabix tapes?
Possibly. And all the 8 tracks.
Yeah.
Pike threatens them with a phaser, which he realises does actually work, and has actually made a big hole in the cage that they exit through. And they go back up the lift to the planet's surface, which wobbles alarmingly. But then it's all been blasted, of course.
Well,
so,
yeah.
Pike tries to bargain for the female crew's release. And in a nice touch, it's number 1 who saves the day by setting her phaser to overload. So that's bonus points on that side of things. Having digested the Enterprise records, the Telosians now know how much humans hate captivity, even when closeted with all they need, and so realise they are too dangerous to have in their zoo. Apparently, the humans were their last hope due to their adaptability, or compatibility. Not sure what that all meant. Venus says she can't return as she was too badly wounded in the original crash and was badly put together by the Telosians.
Yeah.
Apparently, captivity looking beautiful is preferable to freedom looking maimed, which is a shockingly shallow conclusion, isn't it? I mean, if she'd said, if I leave, I will die because they put me together so badly, that would have been better. But no, the inference is, oh no, she must be beautiful, so she has to stay behind. Yeah. And that's the happy ending. Plus, they give her an imaginary Pike to go have fun with. Yeah. There's a final ick scene where Yeoman Colt asks who Pike would have chosen to mate with, because, we needed to find that out. And it ends with the Enterprise flying away into the sunset or some such. Yeah. So, on the upside, I mean, obviously the concept is brilliant because we know what it turns into. And it looks fantastic. What they had managed to achieve with the effects and budget of the time, really impressed with that. Yes, we poke holes in the slightly fake-looking grass and the obvious studio backgrounds. But ultimately, I think they did a pretty good job.
Yeah.
The problem is the acting, particularly Hunter's acting is very stilted. And the attitudes... man, it was there on the wall from the beginning what Roddenberry was like, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
The pilot was rejected by the studio for being too cerebral. Although, to be honest, it does fit the typical Trek template of super powerful aliens who don't quite understand humanity and end up learning some sort of a lesson from the captain. But there we go.
I mean, overall, I didn't mind it. I think it would be fair to say I enjoyed it enough that I would have, had I watched it at the time, would have continued.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Particularly at the time, given how different it was from anything else.
Oh, yeah, this is...
It's
not the first science fiction TV show. There have been one or two others, but this is your first in-your-face, decent spaceships. It did stand out for its time.
So I like Majel Barrett in this. I thought she could have continued as a number 1.
Number 1 is far more intriguing than Chapel ever is.
Yes.
All she seems to do is sort of, melt over Spock, basically.
Yeah. So I think she's good. Spock's good.
Yeah.
It's hard to say. We don't get to see enough of the Yeoman to compare her to Rand, I don't think.
No, although to be honest, Rand doesn't get a lot more to do with the course of her story, as we'll find out.
And in terms of the Doctor, I really like Bones, but I also like Dr. Boyce.
Yeah, I think obviously we're going to go with McCoy because we're far more used to him, and DeForest Kelley is just so lovable. But yeah, Boyce would have been all right. He would have worked. Perhaps his delivery isn't quite as natural as DeForest Kelley's is. I think he's not quite such a good actor, so I think things worked out for the better in the long run. But yeah,
but he's all right. I'm really not at all sure about the overeager helmsman.
Yes. So this is Jose Tyler, although he doesn't look like a Jose, does he?
No.
And perhaps he's supposed to be Josie, I don't know. Jose, but that's kind of suggests sort of Spanish or Mediterranean.
Sounds it, yeah.
Anyway, he isn't given much to do, and he's all a bit sort of keen, and yeah. His hand, by the way, is bandaged. Did you notice? That's supposed to be an indication that he was injured in the Rigel 7 incident, and for the same reason Spock's limping when he first beams down to the planet and all.
I didn't pick up on either of those things. Sorry. Am I insufficiently observant?
No, it's just you don't get to the uniforms quickly enough. We're going to have to rectify this and train you properly.
I said I was getting to it.
Yeah. Took a while. I nearly strained something.
Also, does anybody know what the fuck is chicken tuna?
Chicken tuna sandwiches. Yeah, I can't say that's a combination I've ever tried. Is that a traditional United States sandwich? I don't know.
Or did it?
I mean, it's not like I imagine. I don't know. It's not like I couldn't possibly eat that. But on the other hand, I just chicken and tuna.
Doesn't seem right to me.
No, it's odd, I think. But it could work. It could work.
So what I want to know is,
Give them some mayo,
particularly from United Statesians, is that a real thing? Was it back then?
A traditional dish.
Or has Star Trek made it up as a new futuristic sandwich?
Oh yeah, chicken and tuna. It's the sandwich of the future. Welcome to the sandwich of the future.
That's what I want to know.
Well, it certainly hasn't taken off yet. Let's face it. I don't think you can get that in any shop. So
no, at least not in this country.
Try walking into a one of those where they make the sandwich for you.
Oh, Subway things.
Yeah, and say,
maybe you could have chicken tuna.
I bet you can, and I bet they give you a dodgy look for it. But yeah, and then they charge you £60.
Yeah.
God, I hate Subway. Oh, the smell of a Subway just makes me vom. There's
horrible.
nowhere it smells like a Subway. It's just unnatural.
It just seems to smell overpoweringly of gherkins without justification.
Yeah, it's not good.
No.
Anyway, let's move on from Subway and maybe move on to what other people thought.
Yeah, maybe let's do that then. And we've heard from Doreen, who writes, I enjoyed this change. I found the acting very interesting.
Yes, you can hear the inverted commas there. That's
yeah, it was almost like watching stage acting on the telly.
Wow, yeah, it's a bit crazy.
Yeah. I was surprised by Captain Pike because I think Discovery made me expect a more approachable man.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. I like number 1 and was sad to know the cast is totally overhauled so soon. I quite enjoyed the Doctor making drinks from his doctor's bag. Not the best health advice, but funny. Mm-hmm. It was really
and
nice.
let's face it, it's an improvement on BSG's Cottle, where he's smoking fags.
Yes, absolutely. It was really nice to see the old-style communicators again.
Yeah, those props are a bit different as well, aren't
Yeah,
they? They're kind of transparent, aren't they?
Yes, rather than the black shiny.
Yeah.
Star Wars is the space opera, but something about this made me think space opera for some reason. Perhaps it was the acting.
All the singing in the background.
Yeah.
Oh.
Also, some of the poses Wright took made me expect a voiceover saying something like, the 1960s, when men were men and women were...
Yeah.
Thank you, Doreen.
Thank you, Doreen. Glad you enjoyed it. We've also heard from Jeff. I really enjoy this proto-Trek outing. The story is pretty high concept. Yep. And the whole episode has a nice, creepy atmosphere to it. Yeah, in more ways than one. Jeffrey Hunter is great as the square-jawed, heroic captain. Leavened nicely with a world-weariness and nagging self-doubt. Ooh, you're rather more impressed with him than we were then. Susan Oliver does a nice, if at times hammy job, in Vena's various guises. We were just glad for some emotion and range, weren't we? Despite some unfortunate old-fashioned sexism... That's one way of putting it.
Yeah.
Major Barrett's number 1 is cool, confident, and unquestionably in command after Pike is captured. This is true.
Yep.
Frankly, I think it is Barrett's best Star Trek role. Quite possibly. Spock isn't fully formed yet, but I find the shouty, smug performance very amusing. His exclamation of, "The women!" The transporter room never fails to crack me up. Yes. It was a pretty big deal, to me at least, way back in 1988 when it was first broadcast on television in this format. I've always been fascinated watching The Cage and pondering what might have been if this pilot had been picked up for the series instead of Where No Man Has Gone Before. It's crazy to think that a few decades later we'd actually get to see what might have been. Yes, it's true.
Yeah.
It's weird that but yes, that's where the series has got to, mining its past, even the stuff that wasn't originally broadcast.
Yeah.
Oh, well, there you go. There's an alternative view of some of the acting.
Yep.
It has to be said that Nimoy decided to, when number 1 wasn't going to be in future episodes, he decided to portray Spock as the emotionless one, but he felt he couldn't do that in the pilot because otherwise there'd have been 2 very emotionless characters, so hence he's got a lot more emotion in his performance in this.
Yep.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff. And we heard from our mate Boss.
Hooray!
Who writes, this is one of the few stories I remember well, which I think is partially due to the footage being reused later on, so you get to see most of it twice. I do wonder what test audiences didn't like about the cast, as they were all replaced apart from Lemon Nimoy, and even his character felt different in later episodes. Captain Pike originally appeared as an unlikable character, but I warmed to him during the episode. I kept thinking of Anson Mount in the role, though.
Yeah, Anson Mount's far better, isn't he?
Yeah. Some other random thoughts. The coats they wore on the away mission seemed like a good idea to me, as they hide the uniform and therefore the rank from any hostiles who were familiar with Starfleet. It did make it difficult to spot who was in the red top, though.
Yes, quite. If you were, several ships' complements were down, you wouldn't be able to, on a planet, you wouldn't be able to judge each other's ranks, so that would be a problem, I think.
While it's a good idea for the first officer to remain on the ship, the way it was written suggested this was not common, and Pike did it because he didn't want a woman to join the mission. It looked like it was a deliberate choice to make the lead character sexist and unlikable. It did, to me, have that famous Five vibe about it. Despite knowing about the illusion aspect of the story, I was still able to enjoy it, and it ended well for the two main characters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, cool. Thank you, boss.
Cheers, mate. We've also heard from the God of Llamas.
Llama's log, Scott Deep, Efficacy care. Since you've been gone, I've been searching for a lover on the Sea of Tranquility. Well, this is really annoying, isn't it? I hate it when they do this. Why did they have to redesign the Enterprise? Why couldn't they make it look like it did in Discovery? And why are they wearing the wrong uniforms? Where have the blue bodysuits gone? This is just ridiculous. I really wish they could pay some sort of attention to continuity here. This is nonsense. Oh, yes, I know. Right then, here we are back right at the beginning with the unaired pilot for Star Trek until it was aired repeatedly and in various different formats. This is certainly going to be the start of a journey. I've got to confess at this point, I haven't actually seen all of original Trek. There we go. I kind of started watching it when BBC Two did the reruns back in the 90s, but towards the end of it, either I or BBC Two lost interest in replaying them, and I kind of never got around to seeing them all. I've read the novelisation adaptations of every single episode. There was massive omnibuses that our local library had when I was in my teens, so yeah, I've read about all the episodes, I know all the stories, but I've just not seen them all, so this is going to be an interesting journey, and yeah, this is a start, isn't it, with a very different Star Trek. You can see right off why it was that this show was turned down, really, especially in the time, I guess, and why they decided to replace it with something a bit more action-oriented, because this is very slow and very cerebral, isn't it, and probably not the thing that the networks thought the viewers would want to see. When obviously we've had a lot more thinky Star Trek since then. I mean, Next Generation, this is much more like the Next Generation, really. And there's certainly parallels you can draw between Pike's portrayal here and Sisko at the start of Deep Space Nine, with him starting the series wanting to leave Starfleet and go and do something else with his life. And yeah, I can see why the networks would be worried that we wouldn't want to follow a hero that doesn't actually want to be the hero, and that's why we had to bring Kirk in. So yeah, I can kind of see why they didn't go with it. It's certainly an interesting first step, and it definitely wears its influences right, not just on its sleeve, but on its face. It is very much Forbidden Planet-esque. What really strikes me is how non-diverse this cast is. I mean, I know we're going to face some of that when we get to the original series proper anyway, because, yeah, it still was the 60s, but the amount of square-jawed white American men and the real creamed hair, this is very much a US Armed Services recruitment ad, isn't it? So, yeah, it doesn't quite yet feel like the Star Trek we've come to know and love. But Pike at least shows a degree of sentiment and intelligence and compassion beyond what those stereotypes would be, and so, yeah, it's a good first stab, really, isn't it? And overall, I think that Jeffrey Hunter does not a bad job. There is a lot to like about this episode, I suppose. The whole idea of the Telosians being so mentally powerful that they can convince the crew of the Enterprise to see anything and to even blow the ship up themselves by pressing the wrong dial. It's a very powerful, strong concept, so it was a good one out the gate, but again, I can see maybe why this could be considered to be alienating to audiences of the time. Now, obviously, I could go along with how some of the sexual politics isn't perhaps great, but we're going to get a lot of that as the series progresses, so yeah, I think it's kind of taken as read while we go through these, but yeah, it's certainly not all that progressive. But on the other hand, I guess they managed what they could, because we do have a female first officer. Yes, she is left behind on the Enterprise, but wisely so. I mean, okay, it's a reverse. She should have gone down and Pike should have stayed in the Enterprise, but he at least leaves behind the most competent member of the crew, and that is number one. It is, yes, number one. So yeah, so that was good to see. And yes, whilst the fact that he has to choose between them for a mate does feel a little bit icky, on the other hand, they are trying to populate a zoo, so I guess if the Telosians are just thinking of every creature that's beneath them as just mating stock, then I guess it makes some degree of sense, doesn't it? But can't help but feel a little bit icky anyway. The denouement, where we discover that Vina is actually old and horribly injured, and the important thing is that they give her back her beauty. Yeah, okay, I guess that is probably ableist, ageist and sexist, and you could just say it's the 60s, but yeah, still, I think it deserves commenting on. On the aging front, whilst you could argue that a lot of the effects have aged badly, I mean, the scenes of the Enterprise flying along through space with the stars flying through her because of the quality of the composite and the overlays. Yeah, you could win on that. But on the other hand, the Telosian brain effect looks really weird and icky. I think I commented back on the time when they re-implemented these in Discovery, is that the CG version of the Telosians that we saw in Discovery were nowhere near as icky as the Telosians we actually get here with practical effects, with their pulsating veins on their bulbous heads. And whilst the monster costumes are crap, the actual shot of those two creatures that are sharing the other cages when Pike does his whole Silence of the Lambs bit, the fact that they're practical effects and they just look so bad, it does lend them an air of unsettlingness, which I really quite appreciated. And the whole scene where Spike is tortured in burning hot porridge is also weirdly affecting. So yeah, it's not all bad on the effects fronts. And obviously we can't really comment on the uniforms because at this point it's just a first stab. And again, they do very much reference to the uniforms of Forbidden Planet, although feeling slightly comfy as well. They're just lovely little jumpers, aren't they? With a little zip at the neck, which makes it easier to get them over their head, which is exactly the same sort of thing as the Scrambler has on his tops as well. So yeah, they're wearing oversized baby clothes, which shouldn't be so surprising given that by the motion picture they end up with full body regulation baby grows anyway. So yeah, I guess why not? It's lovely and comfy, and it does make them feel not too militaristic, I guess. So yeah, as I say, it's an interesting first stab. It's not terrible, not classic TV straight away. I didn't come away from this going, I really must watch this again. But it's competent enough, and it'll be interesting to see how it compares to the second pilot when we finally meet Captain James R. Kirk, which presumably will be your next episode because you said you were doing a production order. So yeah, looking forward to that. So yes, I'm looking forward to this 5-year journey. It's not really 5 years, is it? As we seek out old episodes and tear them to bits. I'm, as ever, looking forward to finding out what anyone else thinks of this episode. And until next time, glory to you and your cast.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Tortured in burning hot porridge.
Yes, lovely. Yes. And uniforms are a bit like oversized baby clothes, aren't they? With a zip at the side to go over your head more easily.
Yes, I'd forgotten those, but yeah.
Yeah, I remember those.
It was good to hear Scraplet's getting a good education there.
Yes. Yes. And it is a bit like an armed services recruitment ad, isn't it?
It is. It's so much less interesting and multi-ethnic than
we actually get.
Thankfully,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
But yes, you're right. Yeah, having a captain that doesn't really want to be there, that's not really a good plan,
it's not
is
a
it?
seller. No. And it is more... Although we do get the more cerebral in Next Gen, perhaps we were ready for it at that point in a way that in the 60s, I'm not sure TV audiences were. I think they probably... Some of them, at least, that they were trying to target would have switched over because there wasn't that.
I mean, the thing with Next Gen was you had your cerebral.
That's it.
That's cerebral. Captain Jean-Luc Picard. Yes, he's so cerebral. And on the t-shirt now.
I'm so cerebral.
And then you've got Riker. So you got the best of both worlds with that, didn't you?
Badum-tish.
Yes. Oh, that wasn't meant to the pun, but yeah. But the James Blish novelisations were how I first came to the original series as well. I don't think I caught very many episodes. To be honest, as a kid, I found, like Doctor Who, I found them too scary to watch initially. So the books were like a safer way of learning about the stories. And of course, your brain paints far more fantastic pictures than what you get in the series. Yeah, in reality, the sets and stuff. So yeah, no, the James Blish, I've got them all. I must reread them actually because I remember them as things of beauty and wonder.
Never read any of them. I think.
Well, you can borrow my copies.
I think the first thing I saw of Star Trek was one of the movies, probably 4. But that's only a guess. I was young, as in really young.
I didn't know any better.
And I can
They made me
remember
watch 4.
saying to my mum that I liked what I'd seen. And she was like, but the telly is always showing the TV series that this was based on. So I got to see my original Trek when I was very young, but didn't really remember it and actually wasn't very impressed compared to the movie I'd seen.
Yeah, it has to be said that they're not so impressive, as we'll be finding out.
Yeah, but also I was young, and at the time and less able, I think, genuinely to understand some of the messages in the stories. What did Drew and Tracy make of this?
Hello. So we just watched Star Trek TOS, The Cage.
Yes.
And what did we think of that one then?
Well, I was really excited because I love TOS and I was like, yes, this is going to be great. But to be honest, I don't think it's that good. Like The Cage, the first pilot. It's not. It's kind of got no sophistication about it. I know.
Define sophistication. What did you want from this episode then?
I know TOS is also going to be really outdated, as we'll find out in the coming weeks. But it's just
you're not selling it.
It's not great. This episode, I don't think. I don't know what it is. It's just I guess a bit naff.
Yeah,
maybe.
I mean it's a very sexist start to Star Trek, isn't it? So. And this is what I couldn't understand. So the running joke is every time he sees a yeoman on the bridge, he says, Yeoman, haven't I told you that every time I'm on the bridge, and the joke is that he doesn't want a female on the bridge, but yet his number one is a female?
Yeah, but he doesn't consider her a female kind of thing, isn't it?
Well, that's just rude.
Yes. Let's go through some stuff I did like, though. But talking of number one's great.
Yeah, good to see her
she's
again.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Like Boyce, the doctor, when he's giving the, martini. And also, he clocks immediately the Telosian saying about they're doing illusions and all our weapons might be working out. Like, we like that. We liked when they got the message and it was a fax coming out.
We did laugh.
Yeah, that was great.
It's a fax.
Yep.
Yeah.
A bit of a design flaw, that hatch that goes into the cage, isn't it? Like, if they want to give them some food or they want to take the guns out, they open the great big door. So we get at the zoo in a lion's cage, you don't just have like a big hatch that opens and someone walks in.
The first time it opens, he nabbed her and throttled her.
Yes.
So let's talk about Vina.
Yes, Vina.
So Vina is obviously a poor little sod who landed on the planet,
crashed on the planet,
and they've basically rebuilt her. And as you find out, like at the end, they had never seen a human before, so they've basically made like a Edward Scissorhands almost.
Yeah, I guess.
You know, they've kind of rebuilt her as they see fit. But what I said to you is, why couldn't she have gone with Pike? You know, they could have gone. They could have fixed her.
Yeah.
To be honest, she would have had a better life.
Maybe.
But then she's gone and lived in a fantasy land with Pikey.
Yep.
You know, I don't get it. She's like the feminist's nightmare in this episode, isn't she? Oh, let me please you.
Yeah,
let me be all your
very
fantasies.
Outdated
And it's just
kind
like,
of thing. Yes.
Oh, leave it off.
I mean, I even think, like you're saying at the end, like she chose to live on the planet because she was going to have good looks and that.
Yeah,
like, even that's like a bit.
It's just a bit
pony,
isn't it, to be honest. And on the picnic.
Yes.
Oh, I've made your mum's favourite or your mum's specials. Chicken tuna sandwich. Huh? What the fuck is a chicken tuna sandwich? Know. That's grounds for divorce right there, surely.
Yep.
Come on.
We liked whenever they go to walk the theme music comes in. I'm hoping that theme music's actually been beamed into like the bridge, isn't it? It's coming through the speakers.
And that's just reminded me of a question. So when Pike addressed the whole ship,
yes,
you could hear that he was on Tannoy.
Yes.
Why was he not getting feedback?
PA system, not Tannoy. Tannoy is a brand name.
Shut your face. Why was he not getting feedback on the bridge? Because he was not obviously beaming it into the bridge. But
23rd century PA system.
Oh, right, okay. Maybe.
They haven't got feedback now.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm wrong then. So, pulsing brains, not a pleasant.
Yeah,
look.
the bum heads, as my dad always calls them. Yeah. No, it's not good.
I was just like, oh, it's a bit too much. You could almost see that they had like a tube in there,
obviously,
and someone was down by the side
pumping
just
up with a bicycle pump at their trouser leg.
And I just think the quote, "Wrong thinking is punishable." That's just the quote of the day.
Yep.
As far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. So all in all, I think it's a little bit disappointing, but it's still good to watch.
I quite enjoyed it. Because I just think it's...
I enjoyed watching it, but not as good as I was hoping.
There's a lot wrong with this.
Yep.
When you said, we're watching this today, I was like, oh, no. But it's better than what I was expecting it to be.
Yeah.
I've seen it before, I know I have, but I enjoyed it more than I thought I would.
Yep.
So I'm going to end on a positive.
Okie dokie, yeah.
I'll get slated for it, I know I will, but I'm going to leave on a positive.
Okie dokie.
Should we leave it there?
Okay.
Take it easy, guys. See you later.
Bye.
Bye. I don't think I am generally positive about it. I mean, it as you know, they've pointed out and we've pointed out, and you know, it has its flaws.
Yep.
But I'm still like, oh yeah, I want to watch more of this.
Yeah.
Particularly, you know, get rid of Jeffrey Hunter.
Oh, God, yeah.
It's terrible, isn't it?
Yeah.
God rest his soul. But you know.
But the thing is, at the time, it would have been so different from anything else. I mean, I'm guessing closest approximation Flash Gordon.
Or Outer Limits, something like that. Yeah.
But you know, absolutely at the time, this would have hooked me. And you know, if I saw this now and not seen other stuff, I would be interested. I would be intrigued. It's enough to make me want to know more. You know, obviously I have seen it all, and some of it's shit. Just to warn you guys, some of it is shit. But
a lot of the first season is good, though.
Yeah.
Having said that, the strike rate the first season, what I remember, is really, really high. And the second season isn't too bad either. It just all falls apart a bit with the third season.
No, my memory of the third season is there are 2 or 3 excellent episodes and some absolute trash.
Yes, that's going to be a hard one to get through, but never mind. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
We'll do that when the time comes. It is a very bad hatch design.
Yes.
Yeah, that's not intelligent. But, to be fair, zoos in those days had plenty of bad designs. In fact, even as far back, as recent as the 1980s, 90s, my sister had friends who worked at Dartmoor Wildlife Park. Now, that did get shut down, and this might be why, but they had this thing. The keepers used to go in the cage with the lions to put the food down on a rock.
Yeah, there was that. And there was another one where it was owned by that very eccentric guy who...
Aspinall.
Yes.
They had a tiger keeper die mauled by a tiger.
Yeah, because they had to go in and be one-to-one with the tigers.
They were made to go in with the animals, yes.
Mad. Anyway.
So, I mean, that was like the 80s, to the best of my knowledge, so around the sort of 80s, very early 90s. And this was in the 60s. So, yes, it's a bad design, but actually they could have taken it from an actual zoo that had really shit designs as well. It's not necessarily bad design by Trek, is what I'm saying.
I love the idea they're playing the theme music on the bridge.
I love that, yes, as they drive along.
It's a shame they were just not jigging away to the tune. This is our tune. Da, da, da.
No, if they did that, they'd have to have black and white swirly things and somebody dancing with knee-high or thigh-high boots in the corner. And also, why no feedback on the piece? And I like that. I like that. And yes, chicken tuna sandwiches, yes. Very much, yeah.
And Vina is a bit of a feminist nightmare, you're quite right.
Yes, and the aliens are bombheads.
And finally, we've heard from Puri.
Hello, Orgs. Puri here to talk about The Cage. Yeah, into the original series. I've got a soft spot for the original series. That's where it all started. But I think in this particular journey, we will be running into occasional things that are problematic of the 1960s, shall I say. Also stuff that's just downright weird. So, I mean, my first thinking when I was watching this, I suppose with Strange New Worlds coming up, you do look at The Cage and you instantly start thinking, ooh, I wonder if we'll see Dr. Piper or that helmsman or Yeoman Colt or people like that. You know, it's you do start wondering if we're going to see some people like there. Other thing that struck me was how muted the colour palette was. The set almost looked like it was built for being filmed more in black and white, and I wonder if that was the case. I did hear somewhere that the bright colours that we'll see in later episodes were partly due to a drive to sell colour televisions, and so they were wanting to try and make shows as colourful as possible. Now that said, like I say, this was the pilot that was considered too cerebral. So just my thoughts on it. I like the uniforms. I know this is going to sound like fake praise, but actually, specifically the female uniforms, I think they actually did really well. Actually, Iona commented on that. She said she actually really liked the female uniforms, preferred them to the daft miniskirts that we'll see later. But yeah, I mean, it's a good enough story. It's actually quite simple. I mean, when you take it down to its basic beats, it's the Enterprise responds to a distress call, goes to a planet, Pike gets abducted, some weirdness happens, and then they leave. It's a fairly weird story, I suppose. I mean, we maybe wouldn't call it cerebral as such, but there are some interesting things in it. I like the idea that Pike was, and actually, first time I noticed it. This first time after on this watch that I noticed that the crew actually had some injuries. I think the helmsman had a bandage on, so they've been on a hard mission, and everyone's kind of a bit stressed out, and then they end up naffing off to Talosia, good grief, to the Talos planet where he's abducted by the Talosians, whose heads, me and my wife were having a discussion, do the backs of their heads look like arses or scrotums? I said if they put a pair of jeans on their head it would look like a builder upside down. But that's just our views. And I initially thought, I was actually a bit wrong, I initially thought that the reason why the Talosians spoke telepathically was so it was easier to overdub. Now that said, there is this is where the episodes kind of get weird. So the Talosians do seem like nasty pieces of work. I mean, they abduct people, and then they torture them. I mean, Vina, one of the things I really got from this watch was Vina was quite broken. as in, she'd kind of been beaten down with basically mental torture, and sometimes in some cases technically physical torture, you could say, and basically they've broken her spirit. Now, with that at the end, they do say, "You've doomed our race, we will not continue," because they were trying to breed humans as a servitor race. But then because Vena's kind of ugly and knackered, she's decided to stay. Like, couldn't she live in the Federation? Because they just do not seem like nice people. They wanted to breed basically a race to serve them. And then when they left, they go, "Oh, by the way, Pike, you've doomed our race, so hope you're happy with yourself." And then, but Vena gets her fantasy and that sort of thing. So it's all, I mean, are we meant to like the Talosians at the end, or are we meant to still dislike them? What it is, it was apparently a good vacation for Pike, and I do like that at the end. There is a notable change in his personality. He does seem to have a bit more of a spring in his step, and so I thought that worked quite well. So yeah, overall, I'm kind of glad they didn't go with this. I do prefer my TOS, but I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with this in the Strange New World series, and how they deal with so many problems of the sequels. But yeah, other than that, I mean, there's not really much else to say about it. There's not much to any of the characters that we see at this point. It is a pilot. We see a bit of number one. Dr. Piper gets actually quite a bit, and indeed I quite like his bringing up the scariness of a race who can plant things in your mind. That literally they sheared the top off a mountain with that big laser thing they brought down, but you wouldn't tell it. And they do say that they can, they could crash the Enterprise easily just by making the crew press the wrong button. So so I mean, we do get a good sense of threat through that. It's just, I mean, the actual flashes, kind of the horses on the AstroTurf and whatnot, not so sure. And Vena's dance goes on for way too long. I like a green woman as much as the next, but I think the whole Vena scene is the first of our very problematic things. There's various comments about Orions, but yeah, overall, it's an enjoyable curiosity. So all it remains to say is do keep up the good work. I'm going to be looking forward to this trek through the original series, and I'll hopefully feed back in the next couple of episodes. But until then, bye for now.
Bye, Thor. Yeah, I think it was enjoyable.
Definitely.
I am mostly glad that we get a different crew. What I'm going to do, because I really hate shacting, and I really don't like Shatner, what I'm going to use as my benchmark for this rewatch is Wooden Man. Pike. I'm gonna. Do you know what I mean? I'm gonna compare Shatner to Hunter. Okay, and that's gonna be my benchmark. Is Shatner an improvement on Hunter? Yes or no? That's how I'm gonna view it. The female uniforms, as we said, are definitely better. Although I do remember Nichelle Nichols talking in an interview about how, given the swinging 60s, given that for so long women had been made to cover up, in the context of the time, being able to wear a short skirt and show legs felt empowering.
Yes, I think we look at it differently now from our 21st century eyes, and they were looking at it at the time, which is true. Although I think it's also fair to say that there was plenty of slavering, ogling men around in the 60s going, "This is great."
Yes, but I'm sure that Nichelle was not the only one who felt empowered by being able to show flesh that previously had...
But I think it's quite powerful that the female crew wear trousers. That's really impressive. It's not long dresses or short dresses, it's trousers. They are this equal crew to the
And you get to see that equality in Next Gen in season 1, where you see the old man in a scantron. Yes. It just makes you realise how ridiculously impractical it is.
I don't know, I quite like the idea. It was a hot day. I'll be all right with that. It's a bit like me and my wee willy winky.
Oh God, don't. No.
Yay. Interesting thing about Vena and the Talosians, and are they keeping humans? I think they're not so much for service as they're sort of living vicariously through them. I got the impression. So they've lost a lot of the sensual side of their nature because they've become so cerebral. So they want the humans in order so they can live vicariously through them, which is still bad.
Yeah.
But it's service of a sort, I suppose. But it's not like menial slaves. It's actually we've lost this part of ourselves, so we're going to experience it through these other people, which comes up again and again, doesn't it? Particularly Next Generation as well.
But then you've also got the fact that she has been beaten and tortured and brainwashed, and is this like somebody who's been abused going back to their abuser?
Yeah, there is that as well. That ending is just not satisfactory
just not
at
right,
all, is it? No.
No.
And as I say, it just gives the impression, well, the important thing is that you stay young and beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, by the way, Dr. Piper, in case you're wondering that he was referred to, he's the doctor from the next story. Because we don't get Bones until the first season proper, the third episode.
We've got the second pilot to do first.
We do, which is the one with Dr. Piper in it, whereas this one is Dr. Boyce, yeah.
Right.
So we get
is the second
doctors.
pilot feature length?
No, the second pilot is a normal episode length.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think was shown as, an episode.
An episode, okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. And I like the idea that if you put jeans over the heads of the aliens, they find an upside down builder.
Yeah. Wow. There's a mental image. Cool. Well, thank you to everybody who's fed back. It's always good to hear others' views.
Yes, it is.
Especially
And they make us laugh too.
Yes. Next time, just to be clear, we're doing this in production order. So we're recording on Thursday the 22nd, and we're covering the second pilot, Where No Man Has Gone Before. More things to say about uniformers than that. And then the Corbomite manoeuvre, which in some ways is like the first episode proper of the series.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Tranya.
Drink the Tranya.
Drink the Tranya. Drink the Tranya.
We're looking, Ben. All of this will make sense in our next podcast, or maybe not. Depends how well we explain ourselves, doesn't it?
Does a bit.
There were various bits of Trek news that came out this week on First Contact Day, which is now a thing. Which is like May the 4th. Hey ho. But I discuss those over on The Great Derelict next week. It's coming out. Andy and I will talk through the various juicy danglers that they give us for the 4th season of Discovery, the 2nd season of Picard, the second season of Lower Decks, and also the mystery that is Star Trek Prodigy. Firestarter.
You can't say that, can
Prodigy.
you?
No, I struggle with
Prodigy.
Prodigy. And
Prodigy cerebral.
Cerebral. Leave me alone, have a beer. I'm going to bed. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Just a man in a uniform. Tonight, that's what I want you to be.
The opening music for this podcast was provided by the talented Drew Barker.
The artwork was created by Andy Palastides.
All music referenced is for illustrative purposes only, and no copyright infringement is intended.
Find our website at borgcast.libsyn.com.
And we have a YouTube channel as well.
You can find the Borgcast playouts on Spotify for your listening pleasure.
Visit our Tumblr site at borgcast.tumblr.com, where you'll find images accompanying the episodes discussed in this cast.
Send emails or MP3s to borgcast@gmail.com.
Or you can contact us via Twitter on rev_org or borgcastammo. #Borgcast.
Uniform, suffering every stroke of my hand. From the dusk until the early morn. You will grant this girl's demands. She need to be drunk with pride. Wait a minute, I'm gonna tell you why. To make up for the emptiness that you feel inside. Yeah.
Shut it down!
As if by magic, the shopkeeper appeared.